Hi, my name is John Waite, and I worked for the Hurlbut Amusement Company. Bud Hurlbut had most of the rides in the early days of Knott's Berry Farm. And in 1960, he opened the mine ride, and in 1969, he opened the log ride. And I came to work for Bud about the time just before he opened the log ride. And so I was a supervisor on the ride, and then Bud found out that I had a theater background and a technical background, so he allowed me to do the lighting and work with the scenery in the two rides. In the year 1973, he asked me to attend a meeting over at Independence Hall because the farm was going to do a special farm-wide promotion. And I went over to represent the Hurlbut Amusement Company. And at the meeting, they said that they were going to do a park-wide promotion that was going to be called Halloween Haunt. And they would like all of the concessionaires, of which there were a lot at that time, and the different old games and booths and even the offices to decorate and get in the mood for this Halloween theme. And so with that, I told Bud, and he said, well, we're going to have to do something with these two big rides, meaning the log ride and the mine ride. And so we decided the first year there wasn't any time. We only had about 5 to 6 weeks, and it just wasn't time. So I went into Hollywood and LA to all of the movie prop houses I could find and rented about every spooky looking prop I could get my hands on. Of course, here it was already October, so many of the good ones were already spoken for. But one I remember was about a 9-foot gorilla, which had pretty good. It was kind of scary looking, and we definitely had that, and we put it in what we call the caverns of the mine ride, which is a very big scene up there. And so the first year we did that, and we had about I think it was maybe 6 live people we hired, and I know there were 2 at the log ride, and we had 4 at the mine ride, 2 up in that caverns room, and then 2 down below, which a scene we call square set timbering. And so that's what we did for the first night. But about 3 hours into the haunt, and all the important people were there. All of the managers and all the executives were there. Of course, Bud himself was there. They all had radios. And about 3 hours into the haunt, he called a meeting of all the managers. He said he'll buy them coffee. So they met, and Bud said, look, he said, we've got a good idea here. But he said, it's not going to work unless we get more live people. And so the head of personnel said, well, how many do you need? He said, I want 30 more people. And he said, when you want them? Tomorrow night. That would have been Saturday night. So after he recovered from the shock, he went up and he hired 30 more people to put in the mine and the log rides for that Saturday night. Meanwhile, Bud, his wife, his right-hand man, and his wife, myself, we were all going around to all the thrift shops buying all of the jackets we could find and anything that looked old. And then we had to distress it, slice it, and put, I laugh when I think about what we did. We even took this newspaper and bundled it up, and using pins, we wrapped it in material and pinned it inside some of the jackets to give a hunchback look or a really deformed look to anybody that wore that jacket. And then I, of course, had to go out and had to buy a lot more masks and things to mask those people. So that was the first year. And then from that time on, we kept developing both rides. And the last time that I did both the mine and the log ride was 1983. Bud sold all of his rides to the Knott's Berry Farm in 1982. So at the end of 82 was when the farm took over. So they came to me and asked if I would do Halloween Haunt in 1983. And I said, well, yes, if I can do the same thing I did in 82. And I was just totally worn out. I mean, it was so much work. I loved it, but it was very, very hard. And they said, that'll be fine. So that's what we did on the last year that I did the Haunt. But you know, when I look at the Haunt today, it is so elaborate. They have so many beautiful costumes and masks and makeup and scenery and special effects, all of this. It's just, to me, amazing compared to what we were doing in the early days. But I look back at it and I think, you know, we could stand out in front of the mine ride and see a train come out of the exit tunnel. That train held 50 people, and you couldn't see anybody. They were all on the floor of the cars or laying down on the seats because they were so terrified at what had happened to them. They weren't used to this type of thing. And so I felt we were successful in that way at that time. And if anybody is interested, there is a ride-through of the haunted mine using a recording I made of a ride-through once, coupled with photographs of basically what was happening at the time you're hearing on the tape. Ted Dougherty put it together, and Ted has done a Halloween Haunt book now, which came out this past year. And he kindly took my photos, combined it with the tape, and he put it on the internet. So it's on his website, and you'll get a ride through, sort of as it was seen in those days. And you might want to check it out if you have the time. And the other thing was Rick West, who has Theme Park Adventure, also has a segment in there of an interview with me taken that he did during Haunt, during the time of the Haunt this last year. And some of what I'm saying is probably on that, but I've added some more things because there's so much to talk about on this period of the Haunt. So many things happened to us. Some of them were funny, some were scary, but it was just a time when I thoroughly enjoyed doing the Haunt, designing it, building things that I could. I had excellent help that I could never have done some of the things we did without the help we had. The mechanic on the mine ride loved Halloween. He just loved it. And we'd talk and I'd say something and then maybe I'd say, oh yeah, I don't, that probably, we can't do that. And a few days later, here he built it. And we put it in and it worked, you know. So I had excellent help all the way. An Academy Award-winning makeup artist, Greg Canham, worked for Bud Hurlbut and was working the log ride when he was putting himself through professional makeup school. And so we have some of his work that we used in the rides. All of the masks used in the big cavern scene in the mine ride were designed and made by Greg Cannon. And many other things he made for both the log ride and the mine ride. And my heart goes out. I hope I wasn't so tired that I did not thank them to the extent that they deserved, because many of these very talented people that we had, I had talented sound people that could do sounds and things. If I came up with some crazy idea, why, they would do it. I'll tell a little story on one thing we did, and I can't remember the exact year we put it in, but showing how a very simple thing can be extremely effective, and that was with the mine ride. At that time, the queue line, or the loading building for the mine ride, had a switch back and forth, and the only way you got out onto the loading dock was going through a single door, which is still there today. However, now the wall has been opened up more. So I said to the mechanic on the mine ride one day, I said, I wonder what would happen if there was an air hole right in the middle of that doorway that we could trip off when people went through the door. And the next thing I knew, he had one installed there. And we had a person that stood out on the dock, and they had a push button, and they could control when it went off. And that was the funniest thing. I mean, in the old days, the old fun houses, air holes were there to blow dresses up. Well, people don't wear dresses anymore. But there's nothing scarier than an unexpected blast of air, going up your pant leg, or just going up the front of you or back of you or whatever. And I saw men, young men and men, jump 2 to 3 feet in the air if that thing went off while they were going through the door. And all the people in the train waiting for the ride to start were just laughing their heads off at this because it had just happened to them. So, as I said, it was a very simple thing and maybe kind of a silly thing to do. But it got the people in the mind of the idea. They don't know what's around the next corner. They don't know what is going to happen next. And that's what we tried to do. We tried to distract them, to look one way at something, and we scare them from behind or some other way or overhead or whatever. And I just laugh when I think of some of the things that we did and people's reactions to them. But I think we put on a good show for particularly about the last 7 or 8 years that we did the haunt, because we kept adding every year. The mine ride was always called the Haunted Mine. Log ride had several different names, but finally settled into Terror Mountain. So we had that. And we had recordings playing outside of both lines for both rides that really got you in a very scared, apprehensive mood before you ever took the ride. So I felt we scared a lot of people, and that was fun. So anyway, I recommend to all your viewers here that don't hesitate to come to Knott's Berry Farm and experience the haunt, because it just gets bigger and better every year. And this last year was the best I've ever seen it. And they now have a small but informative and effective Halloween haunt museum. And it is open year-round now, I'm told. I understand that they will have it open at least the wintertime on weekends, and they'll have it open in the summer. And if you go in there, go in the front door, and right around the corner to the right is one of our original ghosts from the Haunted Mine Ride. They found it somewhere. I think it was found over in the log ride somewhere. And they cleaned it up, fixed it up, and right behind it is a photograph of where it was in the mine ride. So go over there, say hello to my favorite ghost that's hanging over there in the Haunt Museum.